The coronavirus not only threatens physical health, it is threatening the mental health of millions of people. Fox News correspondent Jackie Ibanez tells us how experts recommend navigating these feelings.
As people adjust to the new normal of the coronavirus, feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression are rising. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, nearly half of Americans feel the pandemic has negatively impacted their mental health. So what are some ways to cope with the crisis? For starters, maintain a healthy diet. Dietitians say people are more likely to crave junk food when they're stressed, so it's important to stock up on healthy snacks.
We're really trying to modify our food environment in a way that keeps something healthy available for us.
Establishing a routine is also key. Health experts recommend making a schedule and sticking to it. This can include exercising while keeping social distancing in mind or taking up a new indoor hobby. And while it may be tempting to take a nap, experts say you should stick to your normal sleep schedule. If you have kids at home, make sure to balance school with some playtime and ask how they would like to spend their free hours.
It's good to let kids feel like they have some control over a very uncontrollable situation.
Another way to maintain a sense of normalcy, staying connected. Psychologists say hosting a virtual get-together with friends or family is a great way to combat feelings of loneliness.
Technology, whether it's the telephone, whether it's video chat, that should be really utilized liberally because that's going to help people avoid this isolation.
Many states have also launched around-the-clock hotlines for those struggling with mental health. Jackie Ibanez, Fox News.